everyone, and welcome back to the Love Like Crazy podcast. We're your hosts, Jay and Stacy Coleman, and we're here in Orlando at the Hi Hello Lab studio, and we have some very special guests with us today that we're going to talk to. Cuonzo and Roberta Martin are here with us, and so we're just really excited that you guys have joined us.
Hey, we're honored and blessed to have y'all as our guests today. Thank y'all for joining us. And I want to take a quick moment and thank all of our listeners for being a part of this. I got some great information that they're going to be able to share with you today. And so we're going to ask that you would like, subscribe, share this podcast, and leave us some comments, give us a review. It's always great to be able to have an opportunity to help build your marriage and your family for Christ. And so I'm going to go in this direction. I'm just going to call you Coach. I know that your career, you've had a long career in coaching. You had you played basketball, but you've spent a lot of years coaching. So I'm just going to call you Coach. I like it. So why don't you guys do this? Why don't y'all let our listeners know a little bit about y'all? Coach and Roberta, tell us about your story. How did y'all meet, Coach?
I think Roberta might be best at telling you how we met.
Okay.
So we both have different versions of this story.
There always are multiple
what
versions.
We find. Yes, everyone has their version.
But the simplest version is that when Cuonzo and I were in college, we both were at an Arby's restaurant on campus.
Okay.
And in the parking lot, it was a Saturday evening. So everybody's hanging out. It's the first weekend of the college year. It was our sophomore year. And, we're standing out in the parking lot, and Cuonzo comes up to me and introduces himself, and really the rest is history.
Was he this confident young guy that came up and like, hey, what's up,
Yeah.
he obviously made an impression.
Well, he was an athlete, so was he a little cocky maybe?
No.
Okay.
No, he's not cocky.
Okay.
So, nope, he just came up and asked. I was talking to a friend at the time in the parking lot, and he asked me if it was a person who was from my hometown. He asked me, "Are you dating him?" And I was like, "No." And then the conversation just took off from there.
So obviously y'all look like y'all belong together for somebody to make that statement.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, what is your take on it? Everybody's always got another side of the story, so.
Very similar, but I thought one of my teammates, he knew one of her friends, and it was kind of introduction that way. Now, obviously, we got a chance to meet each other. And so that weekend is obviously a big weekend, first weekend of school, so everybody's hanging out. It's a great atmosphere, Chauncey Hill Mall area. But so we didn't really talk after the introduction for maybe about 10, 12 days. But then the next time when we talked on the phone, so I called her and I just said, "How you doing? More or less, you want to hang out?" And she said, well, I think she was going to hang out with some friends. She was like, well, it's my birthday. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, well, today is my birthday, too. And she was like, oh, here we go again, these guys. And so when I saw I had to show my ID, and our birthdays on the same day.
Really?
That's true, yes.
Oh, that is so neat.
That's a match made in heaven right there.
Yes, it is.
True story.
Let me just say this. You have a great tool in your arsenal to know you never have to remember her.
I got it down.
You got it. It's like when my birthday rolls around, I know it's time to get a card.
I got it down. Now the only thing about our birthdays, what I try to do early in our relationship, I would buy her gifts, but that didn't seem to work because I guess my style wasn't good enough to buy her gifts. So I just said, man, hey, let's enjoy each other. Let's go out to dinner and have a great time. But I stopped buying those gifts now.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's not her love language.
Yeah, I found that out quickly.
Yeah, I was big time into gift giving as well, and I would buy her gifts and flowers, and it just didn't really do much for her. And then whenever I found out her love language was acts of service, now I can wash the dishes at the house,
and
or I
speaks to
can
me,
take the trash out. Man, that really speaks to her heart.
So y'all are big into planning a big celebration every year for both of your birthdays being on the same day. That's awesome.
Now I'm going to throw this at you. When's your anniversary?
Anniversary is June 14th, and we got married in 1995.
Okay. I'm throwing that at you because that's the only date you got to remember.
Is that the correct date?
That
Did he get that right?
day.
Okay.
Now, I get it mixed up, though, because my daughter's birthday is June 20th.
Okay.
So I get those two. I'll get them right one way, shape, or form.
It's in June.
Our sons, we have 3 sons, and for their birthdays, it's kind of one of if I remember it, I remember it. If I don't, it's just part of life. As long as I remember Mama's birthday, that's all.
Yes.
That's all that matters.
That's good.
So, well, tell us about your kids. I know y'all have 3 children. Why don't y'all tell us about your kids? Roberta, you want to take the lead on this one, or?
Yeah, so our oldest son, Joshua, he is 26 years old now, and so he's a speech pathologist in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Our middle son is a senior in college, and he's at Purdue University studying mechanical engineering.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then our baby is here in town. She's 16, so Addison. So
Okay.
Well, now, you're both graduates of Purdue?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. And what was your major whenever you were?
Yeah, I was industrial management.
Industrial management.
Mm-hmm.
And coach?
Hotel tourism management.
Okay.
Yes. Hospitality industry.
Okay. So how did it make y'all feel having one of your children go, or did both of your sons go to Purdue, or did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how did that feel having your kids following your footsteps?
I was okay with it. Whatever they wanted to do. I mean, we as parents, they were being recruited because both guys were really good in the classroom. So different schools were looking at different programs. But we sat down as a family and just said, we'll narrow it down to this. And I think that's where a lot of parents get in trouble. They allow an 18-year-old kid to make that type of decision, which is a big decision. So we narrowed it down for our sons, and they made a decision. Like my oldest son, he chose Purdue over Cal Berkeley. And at the time, I was the head basketball coach at Cal Berkeley, and Cal Berkeley was the #1 public institution in the world. So a great school, but he chose to go to Purdue, and I was fine with that. And then our second son, Chase, who's at Purdue now, he was also a basketball player, and he's a walk-on basketball player at Purdue. So he had Ivy Leagues. He had a lot of different options, but he wanted to play basketball, and it was pretty much his decision. But he grew up in West. He was born in West Lafayette, Indiana, so they both grew up in Indiana, so it was a big deal to him. Plus the staff at Purdue, a lot of those guys know him. They saw him when he was a baby, so it's a great experience for him.
That's great.
That's kind of a neat story though, to
Yes.
see it, when he was little, growing to where he is now,
Yes.
and being able to have the staff there, speaking his
Yes.
life and whatnot.
Yeah.
So now I know that y'all are people of faith. Y'all have a relationship with the Lord, love the Lord. Y'all want to talk a little bit about that and tell me about, are y'all involved with a local church? Are y'all involved in a ministry or anything of that nature?
Well, I can tell you the story. We're not involved with a local church, but obviously my wife, and she can probably give you the story about her mom was in ministry as a pastor, and she still is. She doesn't practice it, but she still is. So every Sunday we have church via Zoom with my mother-in-law, my wife, 2 of her brothers and their wives, so to speak. And it's a great experience, and we really study the book of Proverbs.
Yep.
And it's hour and a half, 2 hours of great times, spiritual growth, and it's a lot of fun and very intelligent people. And what I found in my experience in church, I've always studied Bishop T.D. Jakes, Miles Monroe, and a couple my brother-in-law's a pastor. So those people I've kind of studied and fallen into their word. But for me, getting into the Lord, my senior year of college, and my wife, she lived that life. She lived it for a long time. So then I got saved my senior year in college. And it was different because, again, she wasn't necessarily running from that life because she grew up in it. But you know how it is, you get away from home, you want to have a good time and that sort of thing. But for me, it was a new world, and I enjoyed it, I embraced it. But I think about in 2014 is when I really embraced the word and just really started to study. And I just think I had a personal relationship with God, and we talked about different things, and he gave me certain assignments, and it feels like oftentimes he has that thorn in my side, which I enjoy and I embrace it.
Well, something you said in there that kind of stood out to me is relationship. And when it dawns on you that relationship with Christ is exactly that relationship, instead of, a lot of people embrace it like religion, regiment, all this type of stuff. And when you realize it's really about relationship with him, and you begin to walk in that every single day, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yes.
So now, Roberta, I'm curious if mom was teaching, pastoring, preaching, or do you feel that same desire? Have you ever preached or looked to that or anything of that nature?
Yeah, no, that's never been my desire.
Okay.
But no, I mean, it's as Counsel said, it's interesting because I grew up in the environment where I was in church all the time.
Yeah.
So whenever the door was open,
yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
My friends,
Me
if they
too.
spent the night at my house, then they were there as well. So
They had to go to church also.
yes. So it was interesting because when I got to my college level, I was like tired of it, right? I was like, I have been forced to do this. I don't think I'm going to do church anymore. I knew probably one day I would be led back to that. situation. But I thought, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. So it's very interesting. When Cuonzo and I first started dating, probably maybe the second year, maybe the third year that we started dating, then someone had kind of introduced him to a local church. And so he was like, okay, you can come with me. And so then we started coming together. And I was like, gosh, I was really trying to get away from this. And here we are. And then Cuonzo got really serious about his faith his senior year of college. And I just thought that's just funny how God works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even when we think that we can move away from something, he'll put someone back in our lives. And it was new to Cuonzo. I mean, he had heard of church. His grandmother was religious when he was younger, but he had not been exposed to it the way I had. So I just thought it was interesting that then he would become the leader of our faith walk from that point on. So.
You know, and I honestly think we in our church, we have a group called Journey Men, and we do this once a month. We do what we call Breakfast of Champions, and I really hit the guys hard. You know, so I don't pull any punches. I mean, I let them know as men we are called to lead spiritually, because a lot of times it's been pushed off on the wife to lead the household spiritually. And as men of God, we're called to lead our household. And I think a lot of, wives, if they have to assume that role, they will. But there's just a sense of relief within them whenever the husband steps up to lead in that role. And so whenever your faith became real to you and you begin to walk in that relationship with Christ, I know that it's something exciting for you, but probably very exciting for you as well to watch that within him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been great. And I think throughout our marriage, as maybe career has taken a bigger role in his life, then I've had to step up and be like, okay, our kids are going to go to service even when dad has to travel all over the place. But so we kind of have it back and forth. But yes, it is a big relief that he is the leader.
Yes.
Well, I know you were the same way when she talked about being in church every time the doors were open.
Oh, yeah. I grew up in church. My mom was the church secretary. So we were always there. And then we met later on when I was in college. Yeah. And
I say it like this. I had a drug problem whenever I was young. My mom and dad drugged me to church every week. And
I went with no problem. I was happy to go to church.
I went to these churches and we were there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and it just got very monotonous. So as a teenager, I rebelled. I wanted to do my own thing, and I'd started living in the world and doing the things of the world. And 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I encountered the Holy Spirit in a way I never had, and I got born again. And really, that's when I stepped into a relationship with Christ. And then I meet her a month later, and here she was in Bible college at the time, pursuing a degree in music, and had no aspirations for ministry. She just wanted to be a music teacher. And we meet. We go out on our first date, and at the end of the date, she reads me the riot act. She tells me, hey, look, I am not like all those other girls you dated. You keep your hands to yourself. I don't play all those games and whatnot. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. And then she gets through with this speech, and she says, all right, so you going to kiss me goodnight or what? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of scared of you.
I didn't want to let you go. I mean, I knew I had a good catch there.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of you. So now, I was in listening to your podcast, heard about you speak about the battle that you had with cancer, and it sounded extremely serious. And I want to kind of dig into that a little bit, because I want to tell us a little bit about that, about your diagnosis.
Well, I was playing professional basketball in Avellino, Italy, and this was 1997. And so I left home maybe August 5th, and I was there training. And then I guess around maybe November the 16th or 17th, and I was playing, having a good time playing. So I was running down the court, and I get to half court, but I was breathing like this. This I was breathing down the court, and I just passed out on the floor. And so the trainer of the team, who was Italian, but he couldn't speak any English, so he took me back into the training room to set me on the table, just checking me. And then what he was gesturing, he was saying that you were big when you came to Italy, but you did like this, now you're small. And so they took me to the hospital and did tests and x-rays and blood work, and that was probably an hour and a half process. And then so that night, they took me to the owner of the team's house along with his wife. Now, the owner of the team was Italian, but his wife was Italian, but she grew up in New York, so she could speak fluent English. And they were more or less saying, you need to get back to the States immediately. We're not sure what it is, but there's something wrong. And I didn't think they didn't really want to alarm me what was really wrong. And so Roberta had just came over probably a month before this. And my son Josh at this time was 4 months old. And so they came over. So we flew back from Rome to New York to Indianapolis where we lived. And so we got off the plane in Indy. We had a limousine service just to take us home because, again, we weren't expecting to be home. And so we were taking the bags into the house, more or less Roberta was, and I had my son Josh, who was 4 months old, and we walked through the door, and we had a couch when you come right in the door, and I kind of put him on the couch. I didn't really fall, but I was exhausted and set him on the couch. And again, he's 4 months old. And then I went over to the other couch, and Roberta was kind of getting the bags in and out. And then she came around and just said, we need to get to the hospital immediately because I was so exhausted.
You knew something was wrong.
Yes. I mean, really exhausted. And so we went to the hospital that night. So this is all in a time span. I'm going to say between 1:30 a.m. to like 3:30 in the morning, this whole process. So we get to the hospital in Indianapolis. And the doctor, he did, tests, x-rays, blood work, similar to what they did in Italy. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting on a table, and he's standing next to me, and Roberta's probably 2 or 3 steps away from me holding Joshua. And he says, I can remember his face. I don't remember his name, but he said, I don't know if you're going to die, but this is life-threatening. Again, they did a lot of tests, x-rays, and blood work there. And then, so what happened was, but he was a late-night doctor, so he wasn't, they were trying to figure out what it was. And then they did the biopsy a couple of days later. But what they were hopeful of, it was probably tuberculosis. So that night I was in the hospital. Roberta and Joshua couldn't stay in a room with me because assuming it was tuberculosis. Yeah. And so I just remember being in the bed that night and simply praying to God just to allow me to see Joshua turn 18. Amongst other prayers, but that was the main one, just allow me to see 18, because my thing with God and our relationship, you allowed him to be in my life as my son. You gave him to me, so at least allow me to raise him to 18. I figured 18, he'll be man enough to maneuver on his own in life. And so when they found out it was cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a form of cancer, and it was about a baseball, the size of baseball between my chest and lung area. And so again, they had to do chemotherapy. They couldn't do radiation because it was so close to my heart. And so I did chemotherapy for about 4.5 months. And you're talking about a struggle, a real struggle, and constantly losing weight in the process. Eventually I had to give a blood transfusion. Also had to get steroids in my body because I was losing weight and I couldn't eat. I remember going home for Thanksgiving. Now, in the back of my mind years later, when they allowed me to go home for Thanksgiving, I assumed that they probably thought he probably won't make it to go home for Thanksgiving because I couldn't even eat. I mean, Roberta made it appeared to be a great looking dish because I couldn't eat. And so, but they keep
you're thinking that maybe they're sending me home to have one last holiday with the family.
Yes, but again, I didn't want to put that on my mind like that because I wanted to have strength. And in the process of all of that, which was really hard, I wanted to be strong for Roberta because, again, I'm 26, she's 24. We have a 4-month-old son. It's a tough thing to deal with because it's the one time in my whole life I didn't have any control over the situation. It was completely out of my hands. So, again, it was tough in dealing with that. But also the tougher part in all of that, Roberta had to make me call my mom. She really had to make me call my mom because I didn't want to call my mom at all because I felt as if I was letting my mom down if I called her. I mean, and that's how my mind worked. I don't want to let my mom down, but Roberta's like, you got to call her. I'm going to call her. And so eventually I called my mom and then just kind of went from there.
Wow. Now, Roberta, how at this point when he receives this diagnosis, how long have y'all been married at this point?
2 years.
2 years. So y'all are pretty much newlyweds.
Yeah,
okay.
We are.
Very small child.
What were you thinking and feeling during all of this as far as, so he has this basketball career and he's got this diagnosis and when you get the diagnosis for cancer, you don't really know what the future looks like. What was it like walking through that with him and supporting him through that?
Yeah, it's interesting because at first it seems kind of surreal, right? You have an athlete who's strong, and then all of a sudden, within a couple months, it looks like a very different picture. But I distinctly remember when we first, maybe even that. No, we probably must have known that what was going on of his diagnosis. And I used to listen to an artist, Kirk Franklin. I don't know if you know.
Oh, yes.
And he had a song that he will never put more on you than you can bear. And that song was playing. And I thought, okay, if we're in this position, he plans to bring us out of it because he'll never put more on us than we can bear. And so I said, if we're here, we're supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And so, and it was interesting. And Cuonzo, I don't know how you remember it, but it was shocking at first, but somehow we developed this strength. And I remember people would come visit us during the time when he was battling cancer, and they would look at us like, what's wrong with them? Why are they so happy? Why are they? But I really do think that God gave us the strength to make it through that.
So through that season that's challenging for y'all are ministering to other people.
Yeah, I think people were really shocked. I even remember one of my brothers came to visit, and when he saw Cuonzo, because he had lost so much weight, he just broke down in, tears, and he was just at the bottom of our step crying, and we're like, it's okay.
So
we're
it was a true opportunity then for your faith to be stretched, and in the process, other people seeing how God was moving in your life, even in the midst of your circumstances. That was a true testimony to your family. That's wonderful.
I can tell you, as pastors, we have the opportunity to talk about people growing and stretching through difficult seasons. And let's be honest, whenever it's a good season, everything's great, you're happy, you're not really growing that much in your faith during that time. It's when you walk through something that's challenging that you find out just how strong your God really is and how deep your relationship with Christ really is. Let me ask you this, were you fearful? Do you feel like there was any times that you were fearful?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say it was fearful, because I had a young child. I was 4, and I was like, we did this the right way. We got married, we started our family. And I said, how will I end up being a single? I don't want to be a person raising this son in this life by myself. My mother was a single mom, and I was like, I just didn't want to live that life. That's not the life I planned. So it sounded a bit unfair to me that like God would take him away from us. But honestly, those scary moments were only at the very beginning, because I still go back to the testament that at some point God just put this peace. And I can't even explain it, but it was because that probably after about a month of it I was no longer worried about him being able to survive. I was just like, okay, it's not if he's going to survive, it's just how long is it going to take us to get through?
We're going to make it through this. Okay.
So you truly encountered, like the Bible says, the peace that surpasses all understanding.
And people would really look at us. Like, I think even his friends came over to visit, and they were like, everybody come in all solemn. And then they'd look at us and they're like, okay, I guess it's okay to laugh. It's okay to,
I guess it's okay for us to enjoy life with our friends.
Yes.
So, it's great to hear that it was growing and stretching in your faith. I know that when we walk through things that are hard, that's whenever the strength and the peace of God can be the most real within our lives. So, Coach, what about you? Were you fearful during this?
I think there was a level of fear, but what happened, though I went from 215 pounds to 185 pounds in about 4 months. And then before they started chemotherapy, I was around 178. So it was a fear, but it wasn't a lot of pain. That's the one thing. So if God meant for me to go, I was going in peace, and I was okay with it. And then you get to a point, I was never the type to say, why me, God? Why can't this be somebody else? I just said, why not me? Just if this is my assignment, I got to deal with it. But I was wrestling because I speak as if God is my father, my biological father. So I was wrestling and fighting with him. It's like, so now this is what you want. When I didn't have a great relationship growing up with my dad, he wasn't present all the time. And I love him, but he wasn't present. So now I have an opportunity to be present with my child. So God, is this what you want? Now, if this is what you want, then where's the lesson in this for who? So that's what we were boxing, and I say that jokingly about it. But fear, no, because I was so exhausted. Yeah, fear initially because of the unknown. But then when they said cancer, it's like, because I had no control. And I'll never forget, I was in the hospital in the bed, and Roberta, the night when they were putting the needles in me, and this was the first time they were putting needles in me. The guy tried like 6 times. And I was so exhausted, and maybe the dosage was so high, and I was like, I couldn't breathe. Luckily, Roberta saw me, but I'm telling you, I could have been gone just off that. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't breathe, and Roberta actually saw it. But just stuff like that, because again, it's like, that's a very uncomfortable position to be in when you have no control over the situation. It's like, God, if it's your will, allowed to be done, whatever it is, but no superhero type of stuff at all. But I tell you, the other thing is, when you go to the oncology office, and I'm just estimating or guesstimating, it's 22, 23 people in the oncology office. 4 months later, it's down to 11. Now, some made it home and some went home to our Father.
Yeah.
And to see that, that's very somber, and just to witness that, it's like, man, I'm here today, so what will I do with my life? And I always felt like I was a good person, a solid guy and all that. So it wasn't like it changed me, okay, let me be a better person. Yeah. But for me, it puts life in perspective, like, man, what's really important in life? I mean, I don't get upset about a lot of things. Unless you affect my family, I don't get upset about a lot of things. I'm easygoing on a lot of things because I've almost seen the other side. And I'm here to talk about it today, so I have peace in life. But, man, fear initially, yes, but after that, it was like, God, whatever your will, allowed to be done.
So let's kind of go with that a little bit, because you talk about things being out of your control, but then you realize ultimately that I face life and I face death, and what I'm going to do with my life is really what's important if God chooses to bring me through this.
Yes.
So what pouring your life in to other people, maybe even your children from that point, let's talk about that a little bit, and kind of, okay, so you're recovering from cancer.
Yes.
You've made strides forward. What was the focus of your life from there?
Just my family. Whatever Roberta, my kids want to do, let's do it. I mean, that was the most important thing. And I'll take that a step, because you can, I mean, pastors die, all kind of people die at all ages. So you can plant the seeds, you can till the soil, but there's only one rainmaker. So whenever he decided to bring you home, you're going home. Right. You have no control over it. So I wasn't walking around living my life on eggshells. We're going to live our life. Now, there was a fear, because after my last treatment of April 20th, 1998, they said there's a 5-year window, where after the 5-year window, is just the chances of it returning is just like anybody else. So, of course, in that 5-year window, any marks on my body that doesn't look normal, right, you got to get it checked out. But after that 5-year window, man, but now it took me years to say the word cancer. It took me years to even say it. Why, I don't know. But my life to this point, whatever my children want to do in a respectful way, as they continue to grow and study life and live it the right way, I'm okay with it. They understand God through us and talking about it, not like we pull them into church every 5 minutes, because they have to find their way in that. Yeah. That's their journey. But our job as parents to equip them with the necessary tools to survive in life. And I had one of my friends, his dad said to me, one of my former players, his dad said to me, as a parent, you figured out my daughter, she's on her way out the house, and we'll be empty nesters now, good or bad. I mean, I love my kids being around. But he said something. He said, even as a grandfather, my kids are out of the household. He said, as a parent, you're only as happy as your saddest child. So no matter how old they get, you still feel their pain. So it never stops. And so you got to find peace in all of it. And that's what I try to do. God, grant me the peace to be the best version of me today. And I used to set goals when you were young. They always said set goals. Man, my goals are weeks at a time, months at a time, but I don't have 20-year goals, because life is not promised. And not that I'm worried about it, but just we're going to live today and let the chips fall where they may.
I love that. I love it. Well, let's kind of, so you are at the season of life now where you are getting close to empty nesting. Let's kind of talk about that a little bit. I can tell you that we've been empty nesters for a couple years now, raising 3 boys. And empty nesting is amazing, because you're able to kind of go do what you want to do. We're blessed that our kids live within 5 miles of us. And we've actually got our 5th grandchild on the way.
Amen.
We had our 4th grandchild, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
And so I love my kids, but boy, I love those grandbabies. Y'all have done a great job raising your children up, and it's evidenced by the life, that they're productive. They've got a career. You got a 16-year-old, getting close to heading out of the house to go to college. So let's kind of talk about the season you're in right now. What does life look like in the next I know you don't make long-term goals, so let's stay 6 months, a year. What's life going to be looking like for you?
Well, my oldest son, obviously 26, living his life. Our 22-year-old son is scheduled to graduate in mechanical engineering in May. He wants to be either orthopedic surgeon or a neurologist.
Okay.
My daughter's looking at colleges right now. Hadn't really solidified anything, which is, again, it's her choice. And we've always made it clear it's their choice, but we'll narrow it down to help you find your way to navigate through life. But really, Roberta and I, business things, real estate, man, just a joy, really. We don't have a script of we got to do this today. I'm like our schedule every morning, weekdays. Roberta walks her dog, I take Addison to school. We both get home, we work out together. After the workout, I say 10:15, 10:30. Then our day kind of starts from a business standpoint, whatever we have planned. And then we pick Addison up, then it's her world. I mean, whenever she's around, it's her world. We kind of follow her lead. And I enjoy that because, again, you don't get these days over, and then when they're gone, and you wish they were around you. But I want my kids to live their lives, man, and spread their wings and fly.
Yeah. So picking her up from school, dropping her off to school, I'll tell you, is that like one of the highlights of your day? Yeah.
It's a highlight because, again, she's my daughter, my only one, and just a joy to see her grow in this and kind of backdrop. When she was a year old, I was coaching, and I missed her first birthday. Now, I'm the head coach of a university, and I missed my daughter's first birthday because I felt like I was working hard. As you grow older, you understand what's most important. At the end of the day, that didn't matter. So I missed my daughter's first birthday. And I just told her that story about a month ago. I just told her again. Wow. It was because I was explaining something else to her. Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. Now, I should have been there and present, but because I have a strong, phenomenal wife, I dropped the ball in some areas because I know she'll pick them up. But I felt like I was working. But for me, when she's in that car, that is, I mean, it's really my life. It's my life. So, I mean, I would give my life for her, and I wouldn't flinch with that, either one of my kids. She's my life. So now, really, the joys are having her in the car with me, but now she has her AirPods on. So whatever I'm saying, she's not hearing. So I got to tap her and say, because she listens to her music, but it brings me joy because that's her world. And I understand my space in it. I want her to grow into her world, the music she's listening to, her identity she's finding her way in life. And I think that's the beauty of it, for me to be present. But what I always say to her, your mom and dad, we've been around the block. I know we look old and appear old to you, but we've been around the block. We understand the things that you're going through, about to go through, have been through. Lean on us. You'll be surprised the type of information you'll get from us. And I think those things are hard for young kids when they're growing up because, again, their parents are so far removed in their minds. But as they get older, they realize, man, mom and dad was right. Those valuable lessons that they taught us. So I'm just hopeful she'll continue to gain that information. But, again, she just finding a way, and I'm there to assist her any way I can.
You may have seen this with your sons already, but there's a point where they think they know everything, and mom and dad are old-fashioned and they don't know anything. And then whenever there's a certain age they get, especially after they get married and whatnot, that they realize like there's a wealth of knowledge and wisdom in mom and dad. And my boys I've heard this from all three of them, like, Dad, you were right about, and I'm like, whoa, say that again.
Can you repeat that?
So now I know my wife was raised without brothers. She has a sister. And so having three sons was completely a game changer for her. Yeah. She was like, I'm going to be a good girl, Mom. And then she has all boys. What do you think of as far, because your daughter came later, how was it for you adjusting raising boys? Did you enjoy raising boys? Was it a challenge? Was it always an adventure?
Yeah, so I am the youngest of five, and I had 4 older brothers.
Okay.
So I grew up with all boys in the house. So when I had my boys, that was what I was.
Okay, so you were schooling this.
I was used to the boys. I mean, that was something I was very comfortable with. But I really, really wanted a girl. I was like, I want to be related to another girl besides my mom.
There you go. There you go.
And I remember, just quick story, when we decided to try for the third, I remember all of our friends were really nervous because I was adamant I only wanted this baby. If it could be a girl. So when we found out that we were having a girl, I mean, it really was a celebration. People were relieved. They were clapping for us. They were people at my office bought me cupcakes. I mean, it was just like, it was amazing. But she's here. My boys were so happy when they found out they were having a sister.
Yeah, I could imagine they were. Now, for you, having sons and then having a daughter at the end, how was it having a girl? because I can tell you, I have daughter-in-laws now, and I love them dearly.
And we have granddaughters, so
it was great.
It's
different though. It's because again, I raised my sons, and I use this phrase, but not necessarily, but with them like they're in the military when they were younger. Not nothing aggressive, but just make your bed. I mean, those guys when they were 4 and 5 years old, they'd make their pancakes. They put stuff in the microwave. They made their bed. Now it wasn't great, but they did all those things when they were younger, because you're just trying to teach them lessons. Now my daughter, on the other hand, I mean, that room looked like a battlefield. Now it's hard to clean up. There's so much clothes everywhere. So it's just different. But in that case, I think when you have a great team, Roberta and I, we're a great team. And we're it's safe to say we're not only husband and wife, we're also best friends. We communicate a lot with each other. So in this case, I leaned on her to help me understand how to raise a girl or a daughter. So I just kind of followed her lead. And that was it. I mean, just one day at a time. Now, again, she's going to be her. And because what I deal with our children, what I try to do and what we try to do is, sometimes when you're raising children, especially when we grew up, you couldn't talk back to you. If you responded, if your parents said something, that was considered talking back. Even if you just explained something, not necessarily being aggressive, using foul language, but you don't talk back. So with our kids raising, I wanted them to be able to communicate, because what happens is you never know what they'll become. But if you suppress them, you allow them to be docile and afraid to speak, that can affect them years down the road. So we wanted our kids to be able to communicate. They felt a certain way about anything, talk about it. Because I wanted them to grow into whatever it is they were growing into. I didn't want them to be able to be afraid to talk about certain things. Now my daughter, and she's not afraid to talk about certain things, and that's just who she is. She'll say what's on her mind, which is great, because she's growing into whoever she's growing into.
Yeah. You wanted her to have her own voice.
Yes.
Well, I know for us, raising the boys up, it was always, there was a lot of testosterone in the house. And my wife is very grateful now that she's not outnumbered
I love
anymore.
that I have daughter-in-laws and granddaughters. It's a lot of fun.
Our first grandchild was, we wanted a little girl quite naturally, and the first one born was a granddaughter. So that was very exciting for us. And you are right that it is different with girls. I found out quickly she was, 18 months old, maybe 2 years old, and she did something. And I just had naturally have I've got a loud voice, and I'm like, Libby, don't do that. And she just looked at me and just started crying, and I'm like, what? I didn't.
You have to talk softly. She's not a little boy.
She said, you cannot talk to little girls like that. No. I'm like, I was just saying, don't do something. Well, let me ask you guys this: if you could give just, and we love to put this in front of our guests. You could just give one piece of marital advice. Hey, we've been married a long period of time. What is a nugget that you would give to a young couple where they are, maybe starting out a couple years in marriage? What is just one piece of advice that you would say, hey, I want to give this to you, and this is going to be gold for you?
Roberta, you can go first.
No, I mean, and people ask us this a lot because we've been married so long. So like, how are you guys survive that? And I always say, I don't have a magic bullet that has worked that really got us to this point. I just think we're naturally best friends, and I don't know, Cuonzo maybe thinks this is maybe I'm just not thinking about this thoroughly, but I really just think we were a great match in the beginning, that we were a complementing match from the start. Like where I'm weak, he's strong. Where I'm strong, he could use help. So I just think we're a great match, and we've just kind of just walked through life playing off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. So
can I tell you what you said that you may not have even realized that is probably the strongest thing? You said we're best friends.
And he said that also earlier. And we talk about that a lot on our on this podcast.
I really think that that's what a lot of it comes down to, is if you will invest in your marriage and you will focus on being friends. Because a lot of couples, whenever they get to the place where we are, if you've spent your entire marriage pouring into the kids, we've actually counseled with couples that have been married, 20, 25, 30 years, and they're thinking of divorce because they don't know each other. They're not friends. They've poured everything into careers. They've poured everything into kids. And then they get to the point where the kids start moving out and they realize we're strangers.
Yes.
And so for me to hear you say best friends, that's awesome. And it was a good match as well.
Yeah.
So, Coach, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have a few of them. I think one of the things is what Roberta and I did as a young age. We kept our business to ourselves. So you're talking about a young couple. So we had issues, whatever those were, we would talk amongst each other. Sometimes you suppress it because you didn't want to talk to anybody else about your business. So we grew together. So now, because what happens, for example, you're in a relationship and I go home and tell my mom, yeah, Roberta, she makes me upset. She did this. Well, what happens, my mom forms an opinion. So the relationship will never be the same just off what I said to her. Roberta and I stay together. That relationship is strange. And Roberta wonder why is there always tension with your mom? Well, because of what I said to her. So you always want to keep your business to yourself. And I think it's okay to seek counsel, but know why you're going to seek counsel. Don't just spend money to seek counsel. Know why you're going. I think the other thing is, like, for example, you have to talk about a lot of things. You can't be afraid to talk about things. If you're uncomfortable in a marriage to talk about something, that's a problem within itself. So, and like, for example, I have young players now that are men and they're in situations about to be married, looking at getting married. And I always say to them, why do you get married? Why do you want to get married? Because I want them to be able to answer. I said, it's because of the beauty. It's because of the sex currently. And I said, okay, what happens to beauty fade and all of a sudden the sex isn't there? What are you going to do then? So you have to be able to talk about these things. And they said, well, Coach, well, that's why you got to think about it now. Yeah. You can be married 40 years, but you have to communicate these things. And then what happens all of a sudden, you have children, because sometimes you're in a marriage, one person doesn't want children, but I'll have them because you want to have them. Then that relationship is strained. So I think you have to talk about a lot of things. You have to keep your business to yourself, and then you have to continue to grow together, because what happens in life, we're forever growing. Mm-hmm. So Roberta's not the same person she was when I met her at 19. Yeah. Right. You know what I'm saying? When she was 30, she was different. Mm-hmm. She's a beautiful, I know she looked like she's 28, but she's 50 years old, a beautiful woman. So we're forever growing, so we have to be able to grow together. And you have to give space to allow each other to grow. And okay, well, he's changed or she's changed. Well, let me make the necessary adjustment as a husband so I can be better in that. And then what happened? Kids come in the fold. Now it's different. So now you working. So in this case, I was working. Roberta was at home. Roberta stopped her job. She was very successful when I became a head coach in 2008. So now that's a sacrifice. And she wanted to be in the corporate world. She worked all those years growing up to be successful. Well, she makes the sacrifice. That's a real commitment in a relationship. We never skipped a beat. And we didn't have separate bank accounts. This was us. Everything we do is well, you have this, have that. We're a team together in everything we do. And our relationship is so strong. After I couldn't tell you what's in our bank account. Roberta knows because I trust her with my life. And I think those are the things that are very important. When you're talking about getting married, then there's a sacrifice and you become one. And I think and I'm only speaking for young men, a lot of men, especially when they raise their mom, they have great relationships with their moms, they can't decide who's most important between their wife and their mom. Well, your wife takes precedent over your mom. Right. And you have to understand that. And I think it's God and your wife, then your mom. And I think a lot of relationships crumble because the mom get in the way and it's just a rough, rocky road.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I'll tell you what, you said a word in there, talked about communication. Yes. When you communicate, you're investing in your marriage. Yes. And to hear you guys talk about being best friends, that really blesses my heart. That. Well, you got anything else you want to?
I just appreciate y'all coming and talking with us today. This has been great. Yeah, this has been great.
I've enjoyed hearing the different stories, hearing about your challenges, but how it grew you in your faith. Yes. And I tell you what, the nuggets of wisdom that you guys have dropped here today, I know are going to be tremendous blessings to the different listeners that we have. So thank y'all so much for coming and being a part of Love Like Crazy today.
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And before we finish today, Coach, can you please share with our listeners how they can find you, Roberta, how they can find you and connect with you?
Yes. Well, I have Coach Cuonzo on Instagram and also on Twitter and Facebook, Coach Cuonzo, but also have I done went blank, a podcast, It All Counts podcast. And I think it's a great show. You love it.
I've listened to your podcast and I got to say it's very eye-opening. I like the realness of it.
Thank you.
So it's great to be able to listen to that. Roberta, how about you? How can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, I'm at The Coach's Wife on Instagram.
Okay. At The Coach's Wife. Okay, right. That's
well,
wonderful.
Once again, thank y'all for being a part of this podcast and for sharing with all of our listeners today the different bits of information and wisdom that you brought to the table today. And I want to let you guys know that if you are enjoying this, like, subscribe, share. It's been great to be able to speak into your life, into your marriage and your family today. And as always, I'm Jay.
And I'm Stacy.
And this is Love Like Crazy.